Welcome, everyone, to Monday Night War Room Live. Going for two, and this is week 16. It'll be our final episode here. My name is Kyle Senra. We've also got Dan Rosier, as well as the fantasy sports jock, Jim Ferretti. Almost messed up again. Wouldn't be as easy without messing up the name. But how are you both doing?
Good. Merry Christmas. Everybody survived the holiday. Looks like they're in good shape, with the exception of Gladys, who got downgraded from doubtful to out just before showtime. So Gladys, if you're watching, we hope you're feeling better and on the road to recovery.
Yeah, the scans are in on Gladys. She's
still being evaluated, although it's not believed to be serious. So we're hopeful that she'll be back for next week, or she'll have a normal off-season program. But we'll have to see.
Best shape of her life coming up. There we go.
There you go.
Best shape of her life in the off-season. I like it.
Yeah. So unfortunately no Gladys, but we're still here to talk injuries of NFL players too, not just of the co-hosts. And I mean, at this point, I think one of the things that I would maybe think is what people want. And of course, if you do want something, let us know. Of course, you can always comment, question, and Gladys is, I guess, appreciating the shout out. I can see that. So thanks, Gladys, for joining us, even if you're not on camera. But I think the long-term injury outlook for some of these players who are currently injured, and what we could kind of expect for them coming up this following season. So we're looking at major season-ending injuries for certain players.
Yeah.
I know right off the bat, it's going to be interesting, I think, in Miami. I think a broader discussion is how are the targets going to shake out in Miami? Because we got to see, Tua about half a season we'll have. Maybe get to see him in the playoffs as well. And, certain games he's targeted heavily certain receivers, certain games where Parker seems like he's the main guy, other games where it's maybe more towards Gesicki. So I don't know that we really know how all the targets are going to shake out. And I guess one player that really we haven't seen him with Tua is Preston Williams. Back-to-back season-ending injuries, unfortunately for him, in his young career.
Yeah, so he's definitely an interesting one. He's been out since kind of early to mid-November with this foot injury. And it's still unclear as to what the nature of it is. Given the time frame that he's been out, I kind of have a suspicion that we're dealing with a Liz Frank. It may not be. They still haven't officially ruled him out for the rest of the year, so it is possible that we could see him again because he's kind of at the 6 to 7 week time, mark right here, which is right around 7 to 8 weeks is right around when non-surgical Liz Frank injuries. You can see players kind of make a comeback from that. Le'Veon Bell had a non-surgical Liz Frank early on in his career, and he was out for about 8 weeks, came back and did pretty well. Given the nature of the other injuries that the Dolphins have at wide receiver, specifically Jakeem Grant came back from one injury and then picked up a high ankle sprain. So he's, going to be out for a long period of time, 4 or 5 weeks minimum. Devontae Parker has been out for a couple of weeks, and he may or may not be back week 17. So if the Dolphins actually make it to the playoffs, Preston Williams is somebody that we could actually see kind of step into a high volume role. And the other guy that's interesting, in addition to Gesicki, who you mentioned, who came back from his dislocated shoulder and played pretty well this week, is Lynn Bowden. When all the other guys have been out, he's actually done pretty well. This past week, he played behind Jakeem Grant until he got hurt. But he had a couple of pretty decent games as a high volume guy and saw a lot of targets, even though he didn't pick up a pile of yardage when those guys were out. So he's somebody that's interesting for week 17, kind of DFS, tournament play, things like that. Kind of along the same lines of thinking more long term. It's one guy we've mentioned a lot. I feel pretty good about this because we've kind of been on this from the beginning, and despite the reports of the rosy appearance of things with Christian McCaffrey, we just didn't buy into it. It's like They said, hey, he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. He's out for a month and a half plus with a high ankle sprain. He comes back. He separates his shoulder. He might be out a week or two. He was done for the year at that point. And that's what we said back in, week, whatever it was, 11 or 12. And he never made it back. And they already basically said he's done for the year. He's not playing this week. But long-term wise, would I hesitate to to take Christian McCaffrey next year, I absolutely would not. Like if it's the first round and he's on the board, I'm taking him. So, even though his year was kind of lost, if he slips off of the number one, he really shouldn't. But given the week that Alvin Kamara had, he might.
And that was just my question. You said first round, and how high in the first round?
Number one. If I got the number one pick, I'm taking Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And I love Alvin Kamara. I love all these other guys. Dalvin Cook had a great year, but I still wouldn't move off of McCaffrey, even though he had these injuries. And statistically, this wasn't a great year. If you look at when he played, what kind of production he did, even in one game when he separated his shoulder, he only played, I think it was 3/4 of that game, and he still had a monster game. Like, that's the type of potential that he brings, and it's irrespective of anybody else that plays there. When Drew Brees went out, Alvin Kamara went in the tank. So, his value in a way is kind of tied to other players. With McCaffrey, it's not. Yeah. He's a standalone. He's a standalone number one. Like, I would take him with the first pick. And I really, that's not really going out on a limb too much, I don't think. But, there you have it.
I think. Sorry, if I can just quickly, I think it's hard to gauge what we're going to think about with Preston Williams, hypothetically, if he were to come back, because obviously the last two games, Devontae Parker's been a late scratch each time. He's been pulled, 30, 40 minutes prior to kick off each time. So
yeah,
you go back and look at last week, obviously Gesicki, he did all right, but like Jakeem Grant was that guy. Myles Gaskin pulled in 5 targets. A guy that no one really has spoken about. I know he was kind of a sleeper at the start of the year because it was kind of known and not known. Isaiah Ford, they grabbed back. They cut him. Patriots picked him up. They cut him, and now he's back on the Dolphins. He was on that practice squad. He's come back. He ended up pulling in a decent 5.437 this week. So that's something to keep an eye on because, obviously he kind of mirrors Grant as well. As that shifty, fast slot guys as well. He can do that. Mac Hollins also, he obviously bombed that one. He had that big play at the end of the game to help set up the field goal to get them over the Raiders. But he also dropped that touchdown. I know. Listen, but he also dropped that one that Fitzpatrick straight at the breadbasket. He dropped it and he lost that. And it could have been over before overtime even happened. So Mac Hollins is a guy who's he's floated around the Dolphins squad this year in and out and all that sort of thing. But I kind of think that all these guys, they aren't doing much anyway. So if you are in a dynasty, and believe me, I traded for Preston Williams the week before he got canned. It's brutal because I think a lot of us here believe in his talent. The problem is that obviously like something like this is a big problem. That guy's a guy that goes up and gets it. A guy that has potential Liz Frank issues, that's a problem. Like, never mind a guy like a running back. We've mentioned Joe Mixon numerous times who he has to cut and move and weave. That's a problem too. But we're already talking about Preston Williams who had that ACL issue last year. Comes back a year later, bang, foot. Like that's, obviously they're probably not quite linear, but at the same time, it's something to keep an eye on because he ain't getting through seasons yet either.
Yeah, there is a cumulative effect with these things, and it's definitely something to consider. And he's not. I'm speculating it's a Liz Frank. It may not be.
Oh yeah,
they may just not be telling us what it is.
A foot injury.
But
at some point we have to think along those lines. Hey, this
worst case
is
scenario.
It's in the ballpark. At least it's in the ballpark. And you look at those other receivers, like it's fairly spread. It's fairly spread around 4 or 5 targets here or there. It's not centric to Devontae Parker. I don't know. Again, he hasn't played the last 2 weeks, but it's not centric Parker, and that's it. Because aside from Gesicki and Grant, everyone 4 targets, 5 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets, and that's it. I think the big positive to see out of that was Myles Gaskin. Like Salvin Ahmed did nothing.
Right.
He was nowhere. But to see Gaskin get 5 targets, 82, and again, that was a big chunk. That last play to kind of ice the game, I get that too. But to get them through. But 5 targets for a running back, I'm about that life as well. And Gaskin, I mean, I played him in a final this weekend, and I saw that.
Ooh, that's very nice.
Well, no, we came out on the other side all right. Thank you, Deontay Johnson and Curtis Samuel. You're all right. But when you look about that, I mean, forget what he did rushing. He still had 14 for 87. We're talking 5.82. Again, big chunk. But if you like how Tua's going and you like him checking down your running backs, Gaskin's that guy. Of course, off seasons going to come close. There's a lot of running backs coming off contract this year. That's something to keep an eye out for. I think Gaskin is a sell-high candidate. That's a conversation for one of the other podcasts we have coming up. But I think if there was a reason to get rid of someone at this point, it's got to be Ahmed, and he has to be a candidate to sell high on right now, purely because, I mean, could we see someone like a Chris Carson in Miami? I think we could. Like, that's the sort of guy that hit free agency this year that could end up in Miami, and they're not shy of taking these guys. Matt Breida, they traded a fifth for. They'll take a swing at a guy like that. So, if you want to pair a running back that's got pass-catching chops with Tua Tagovailoa, he's going to find him. And maybe, look, this could all be, stick in the mud at this point. It could be Gaskin going forward and all well and good, but that's something to keep an eye on for you dynasty guys out there too.
Yeah, I think with Williams, it's okay, the chance at re-injury, but at a certain point, I think circle back to that point of, could this start to affect his production? Could this start to affect his performance? Just having this many injuries and all the time away from the game and not really. It's gonna. You would think at this point it's got to have an effect on the coaching staff and their trust in him, and the quarterback not getting the reps with him. I think that's a problem in terms of application. I think a coaching staff like Brian Flores has done a hell of a job. I think we can all agree on that. You would think with Tagovailoa or Fitzpatrick, they're going to want to get reps into these guys, and if he's constantly not best ability is availability, right? That's the one they always say. He's not out there. Like, you're not getting them reps. That's a hard thing to find, because if you're Jakeem Grant, you're punching 6'5", 43. But hey, why not? Why not Jakeem Grant going forward? Why not? So, and they got Albert Wilson. I know it's a silly thing to say. They got Albert Wilson coming back from the COVID list next year, I think, depending on what players do, because he opted out as well. So he'll have that next year of his contract there too. Let alone them hitting the draft and drafting guys, because they very well, the way that they're going to be the back end, that mid back end of that first round. You got a big plus the Texans picks already.
Yeah, like you got that big draft class of wide receivers coming through college. Good Lord, they could go and get Devontae Smith, partnering up with his former Alabama guy, and there you go. You got a QB1, wide receiver 1 for a few years to come. That could be a big deal going forward as well. You got to keep an eye on that. But for Williams, I'd be concerned.
I will say this about Williams. Like, he's kind of one of those guys, like, thinking for next year, that he slots into kind of my injury strategy list perfectly, because he's got the talent, he's got the pedigree. The cost, is questionable, because a lot of people are high on him, and they were high on him this year. He didn't really do much, and he got hurt again. So the question is, what's the acquisition cost going to be? If it's low enough, he's one of those guys that you could get, later rounds, teen rounds, kind of forgotten about, and he could really pop if he puts it all together. And if not, you can get away from him pretty easily. Yeah, we got a break in. What do we got?
Jared Goff had right thumb surgery today.
Oh, okay. Ooh. Yeah, I was wondering about that. He broke and dislocated it, but said he wanted to play, which I really got to give him credit for. But question how much he was going to be able to do there. So sounded like he's not going to be available this week.
Unlikely to play Sunday versus Arizona.
Yes.
John Wolford is backup quarterback. So Arizona, that has big implications. Obviously, Arizona need to win to get in, and they need to Green Bay. Green Bay have to beat Chicago as well.
I think the Rams got to win too. Yeah, their path with losing to Seattle.
Very interesting.
What's going to happen though? This is what's going to happen. Sean McVay's going to bore us to death, and he's going to just run it into the ground, and it's going to suck. It's going to be a typical Rams McVay. Hey, let's get Malcolm Brown the ball again. Hey, let's
maybe. Well, it's interesting talking about Arizona, because Kyler Murray showed up on the injury report again. The last play of the game, he got hurt, and they're calling it a lower leg issue. And there's some, Coach Kingsbury used the H word, which always gives me trepidation. He said he was hopeful that Kyler Murray would play this week, and that always scares me. So that means that in a must-win game for Arizona to get into the playoffs, Chris Strebler could be the guy. And I know Kyle has some knowledge of Strebler from the CFL. Is that right?
Yeah.
Care to talk about him a little bit if he ends up getting the start?
So the one thing that we see this with the Ravens having Robert Griffin III, in terms of Murray running the football and them designing runs for Murray, they could do that with Strebler. He's not the same type of runner that Murray is, so it's a little different in that regard. The O-line maybe needs to adjust a little bit, but he can kind of run the entire offense like Murray does. So that should, changing the playbook shouldn't really be a thing for the Cardinals. They should just continue to operate with the full playbook as they have been up to this point. I know Strebler, I believe this is his first year with the Cardinals, so obviously Murray's got a whole year ahead of him, but Strebler's been a pro for longer, so it has that edge a little bit. Murray's still young, still learning the game. Didn't really have he had one season as a starter in college, so even Kyler Murray to this point, not that the playbook's limited, but he's probably not still making full field reads the way that veterans like Rodgers and Brady's do at this point. He's still kind of getting to the game in that regard. So I think there's maybe some upside lowered with the players, but I mean, like a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, he should be fine regardless. I mean, he's been fine throughout his career with quarterbacks that have been much worse than Chris Strebler, I think.
Amen.
So I think the Cardinals should feel good about their chances regardless. I think if both teams forced to go into backups, maybe you trust the Rams offense overall more, but I think I trust the Strebler more than the Rams quarterback whose name I already forgot, even though Dan mentioned it just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, right.
John Wolford.
Wolford.
Yeah, funny story. Their backup was a guy called Sean Mannion, who I actually went to Oregon I knew a guy that went to Oregon State. I saw Sean Mannion play up there. They had Marcus Wheaton. They had Brandon Cooks. I had a crazy good team. There was Jaquiz Rogers was there too. They had a decent squad.
Jaquiz.
Yeah. I mean, listen. I think they beat. Feel like it was Utah because I saw Amir Abdullah play as well. Kind of crazy, but kind of cool to see that happen. But he's in Minnesota now, I think, backing up Kirk Cousins. But yeah, John Wolford, I've never heard of him. Great. It's the Brendan Allen effect, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah. No kidding. Talk about guys coming out of nowhere, but that's week 17, and I know we talked about it before we came on, but week 17, especially with injuries, I really like, and I tend to do pretty well as opposed to the other weeks where I do relatively horribly. But that's because a lot of these guys that are really underpriced, they're going to get volume because of injuries or because other teams just aren't playing. Like we have. The Chiefs have already said that they're shutting everybody down. Any position player, relevant player is not playing. Pittsburgh and the Bills have already won their division. Remains to be seen what the Bills do tonight against the Patriots. But seemingly they wouldn't have anything to play for because they're out of the bye. And then you have the teams that really need to play for, so they really have something to play for. You have Tennessee, Miami, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Indianapolis at 10-5. And they're all duking it out for 4 spots. So they all need to win, and that becomes very interesting. And then we could talk about the NFC, which is even more interesting with the Giants and Dallas and Washington football team and all the craziness that's going on there. Get your take on that, Dan. What you think about how that's playing out?
Which one?
The NFC East. Still, one of those teams is going to win the division. The Giants are live again.
Listen, so here's the thing, and I'll tell you why. So with the Giants, I'll say this much. The Giants aren't taking a quarterback anyway. So for us to, not have a crack at the playoffs, Washington need a quarterback now. That's undisputed. Dallas, what they do with Dak Prescott, who's, not under contract next year, they have to sort that out.
Right.
That's something. If Philadelphia are going to trust Jalen Hurts moving forward, okay, he's shown okay. He was electric for 2 games. He looked a little beatable this week. That's Dallas. Yeah. Dallas put him to the sword this week.
It's a league of adjustments, right?
Giants are the only team I don't think they need a quarterback. I think everyone kind of likes Daniel Jones at this point. So for the Giants to not go out and have a crack at that, I think every other team in that division. I saw something like if the Giants lose and Houston, Cincinnati, and someone else win, they get the 3rd pick overall. That's
really.
But if they win, they can get at least the 17th. The disparity between picks for the Giants is quite large, and I'm assuming everyone else in the East as well, except for Philadelphia, who are out because they're not very good. So they have that going for them. They've got a $130 million quarterback that they're not going to use because money grows on trees, and Philadelphia they believe in that. Fickle. Anyway, you're looking at a division like that. Look, Washington, I think, probably, despite what happened with Dwayne Haskins, obviously today being cut by Washington, that's I mean, he didn't really leave him much choice at that point. If you want to act like a 12-year-old, you're going to get sent to your room, right? So,
And it seems like, I mean, they didn't really have a choice. You know, okay, we're going to go in the week with Heineke, and they almost kind of gave, okay, if you're going to act like that, you better come out and play. And he didn't perform well. I wonder if he would have saved his job with a good performance. At least, at the very least, not getting benched in a game where you can go and win the division.
purely from this standpoint, obviously, because in some capacity, Dwayne Haskins is tied to the Giants because of how we picked Daniel Jones at pick 6.
Right.
So there is always that thing between Giants and Washington about who we should have taken. I think that's fairly clear at this point between the two. Whether or not Jones is the next 10-year quarterback is another thing. But at that time, Bruce Allen, I think, was kind of in Washington still. Jay Gruden didn't. I don't think Jay Gruden actually wanted him either. So he got drafted by a GM because he went to school with his kid. Like, I don't think the coaching staff wanted him. And now the second group of coaching staff come in. They clearly didn't want him. Look, with COVID, the best thing Ron Rivera did, okay, I understand he's not my kind of he's not my guy, but like, best thing they did was grab Kyle Allen. Because at that point, you've got a guy that knows the playbook, the guy that knows the coaching staff. He can run it effectively. Kyle Allen's not good. But at the same point along that elk, that was such a frugal move to make for a 5th-round pick. It was kind of brilliant. So you're looking at how they operate. I don't think Rivera wanted Haskins, and he's shown that. And look, we want to take a step back a little bit and look at – I'll give you an example of quarterbacks with coaching staffs and teams that persist. Raiders backup quarterback Marcus Mariota. 5 years straight, the guy had 5 different offensive coordinators. They couldn't figure it out. He got let go after Ryan Tannehill got it done in 6-7 games.
Yeah, look at Tannehill. Tannehill, same deal. He was in Miami, got kicked out, and ended up replacing Mariota in Tennessee. He's been doing great.
I had the thought yesterday of like, I feel like Daniel Jones is going to be the next Ryan Tannehill. He's going to look better for someone else. I kind of feel like that because OC is gone from last year. That was Pat Shermer, head coach, done. This year's Jason Garrett. I don't think he survives the second year. Done, because he was
Are they replacing him with Freddie Kitchens?
Well, no, the way this works, like the guys that John Mara and Steve Tisch have brought in, they're all starting to go. Like Joe Judge is stamping his authority on this team because he's got the respect of the players and I think the fans as well. That weighs up a big deal. But he's going to bring in his next offensive coordinator. If that doesn't work in year 3 with him, I think that whole coaching staff is gone. Like, that's how that's working. So, like, there's nothing stable in that division. And, like, I think the Giants are better set up to go to the playoffs because Dallas, okay, they put their stamp on Cincinnati and Philadelphia. Great. Everyone has in our division, right? Like, everyone's done that so far. Even we did that. We did that with Colt McCoy for half a game. So, you got to look at how this is playing out in terms of how that division, like, Washington are just falling apart. Alex Smith. Antonio Gibson's had the turf toe. He came back. He was semi-effective. He was fine. Terry McLaurin, he missed this week. That's not fine.
He's out. He's gone for the year. Like, he's got a high ankle sprain.
Okay, so he's cooked. That's it. So, like, unless a miracle happens for him, a miracle. Hey, look, kids are recovering quicker these days, right? But, yeah, right. Like Saquon Barkley, when he had the high ankle sprain a year ago, he tried coming back after 2 weeks, and it just wasn't working.
You just can't. I mean, I know we've talked about it. You just can't. You can't do it. You can't do it.
Well, like, that's a team that offensively is falling apart. And if you're talking about your 4th quarterback this year, that's if Alex Smith can't go out and guide them around, and that's a big if. And they say they were hopeful. They have to beat what? Who are they going to beat? Philadelphia this week. Philadelphia going to try and win. A lot of players on that Philly team are playing for their careers over there. They're going to need to win. There's no way. Like Jalen Hurts, if he wants that starting job next year, he has to win. Like he has to make a point. Zach Ertz, free agent of the year. He wants to be an Eagle. He has to win. D-Jax could be gone. Has to win. Jeffrey, same deal. All these guys, like they have to start turning up for Philadelphia. There's only one way to do that. That's against arguably one of the best defenses in the league in Washington. They shut everything. Yeah. So the East is a big thing, but they're all injured. Dak Prescott's another one. He's interesting to see what happens with him in the offseason. Carsten Wentz, he's had his injuries.
It's interesting that you mentioned Ertz because I was going to talk about that a little bit because, going into week 17 and again, thinking DFS and things like that, because Goddard left the game with a calf injury, and he's kind of a wait and see right now. Richard Rodgers has been injured. So, this is one of those, like, could Ertz be like a post-hype, in week 17 sleeper? I can't believe I'm saying that Zach Ertz is a sleeper in 2020, but if that's what kind of crazy year it's been. But he is essentially, he played 60-something offensive snaps, and if Goddard misses that game, they gotta win. They're not laying down for Washington. And
Not at all.
They are very incentivized to win. Those offensive players are incentivized to play, and he's been out there playing. He just, they've gone in other directions, but he might be the last man standing and could end up having a sneaky, really good game, especially if it doesn't go their way for Washington.
Underlying factor, that game got shifted to primetime Sunday night.
Yeah, so that's an interesting game.
You're going to be
that game's going to be blood and guts.
You're going to be Philadelphia prime time at the Link, and you're going to lose to Washington? I don't think so. Look, I give Philadelphia as much grief as the next person. However,
understatement of the century.
There's a lot of pride about Philadelphia playing at the Link. They take great pride in it. No one wants to go to their play. Without fans, I get it. It's different. But no one wants to go there to play.
That's a division game. There is no chance in hell they are not playing all out against Washington.
And you got
no chance.
And the way they lost to Washington week 1 with Dwayne Haskins coming out of nowhere and just torching them in the second half. If I'm Philly, I want that back. And if you can stop that team from making the playoffs, they're going to want to run at that too. So I think the wild card in that whole division is Dallas, because what have they got to lose? A playoff shot with Andy Dalton? They were written off. They were written off 2 months ago.
Your franchise quarterback's hurt. That's your built-in excuse on why the season failed. Even though their defense was absolutely atrocious and would never have done anything anyway. But
listen, Dallas sports media. I miss living in Dallas for this alone. It's going to go wild. You got the ticket, the fan, all of that sort of stuff, the jam session, all that sort. They're going to lose their freaking marbles if Dallas make the playoff with Andy Dalton, because the way that they were talking about Dak, like they were. Dallas media was off Dak until he started doing what he did for the first 4 weeks until the Giants took him out. And, it's just one of those things. Like, Andy Dalton could lead this team to a playoff. That's wild. And they play Tampa, and Tampa can be had by teams that can, guess what, pass the ball. Not many passing attacks better than Dallas. That trio still, to me, is one of the best in the league. By none. You got Cooper, Gallup, and Lamb. Dalton Schultz looks all right. And then you got Pollard and Elliott. All they got to do is half hold up. I guess, again, one of the best rushing defenses in the league in Tampa. But at the same time, and they'll get after Dalton too. But, he gets rid of that ball quick enough, Tampa could be had by them. That could be a shootout. They struggled against Atlanta. So they struggled against the Giants too. They struggled against those teams. They can, get it out quick enough. So it'd be interesting, but
Andy Dalton does have a lengthy history in his career of throwing to talented receivers and being able to get production from multiple sources. Obviously AJ Green was kind of an alpha to him, sort of like Amari Cooper is. Although I don't know, I guess the way Gallup was looking, who is the alpha in Dallas really? And Tyler Boyd started establishing himself. He kind of showed he can spread it around. So the moment doesn't seem too big for Dalton.
I kind of think until. Otherwise, it's Amari Cooper. I love Michael Gallup. I think he's fantastic, and he had a weird start to the season. But you look at his game log the last month or two. He's got 6, 8, 5, 7 targets a game. That guy's been going nuts. People haven't been looking at that, and that's something that people need to take notice, because I think he's a free agent. I think at the end of the year, I got a gut feeling he is, and CeeDee Lamb's looked pretty good as a rookie, but he's been overshadowed by Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, at times Brandon Ayuk. Lamb, I think, will be better once one of them is gone. Maybe one of them's gone. Sounds like Gallup wants to stay, and I think they'll work something out. But, if you've got to try and sort out a $50 million deal with Dak Prescott, you might be a little short in the bank.
Oh, they're going to get off light on that one. As much as I'd love to see these guys, have confidence in themselves, and I'm sure he's got insurance policies and all that, but he cost himself a lot of money by, holding out for $40 million a year. And then going out and getting a fractured dislocation of his ankle.
97 targets for Michael Gallup this year. 97 targets, 55.
He had, I think, like 113 last year. So this is
that's without Lamb. So he's still
without Lamb and Prescott being out for 2/3 of the year.
And you got the Giants. He's probably going to line up next to Isaac Yardom. He's going to get another 8 targets. He's going to cross that 105 targets with Lamb.
So it's right that same number that he was last year, and I think last year he didn't. That was 113 without 16 games. So
Cooper at 120, Lamb at 104. Like they're all going to hit over 100 targets each. That's madness. It's madness.
And I mean, again, you've got the defense there to support that because they're constantly having to.
I think I asked at the start of the year. I said, like, can all 3 of them go for 1,000 yards? They're going to go close. So Cooper's gone for 1,073. Lamb would be the next one to get. He's at 892. He needs a big game against the Giants. Gallup's a little bit shy. He's at about 794, 795. So they went very close.
206 yards. It's doable, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if no one else plays. But at the same time, like, you're looking at a team that nearly got 3 receivers to 1,000 yards with Ben DiNucci, Garrett Gilbert, and Andy Dalton. For the most part, that's kind of incredible. Like, when you step back and look at what they have and haven't done, that has to be a bright spot for this team. That has to be.
Absolutely. Looking better than the offensive line. When was the first time that you said receivers are better than the offensive line in Dallas? That's.
I mean, Des Bryant scored a touchdown this weekend, right? So, hey.
So less fantasy related, but do you think there would be a boy born who can swim as fast as a shark? The Hamburglar is wondering.
I'll tell you what. You put me in the ocean and I see a shark, you're going to see somebody swim pretty fast. So I might be that boy. I don't know. I haven't had that chance, but I might set the world record in the 200 meter if I see a shark or a jellyfish for that matter, or even a starfish. So a lot of algae, whatever. I'm getting out of there.
No. The answer is no.
What? Could Michael Phelps outswim a shark right now?
Never. That's silly.
Okay, moving on then. So I guess one other player that I'm a little curious for, and not so much the injury, although we can touch on that if you have heard anything about it, Jim, but Cortland Sutton, and just the quick thought on his dynasty outlook.
Another one of my guys.
Okay, because I am going to say, he'll be 25, coming off of pretty serious injury, entering the final year of his rookie contract, and. I almost wonder, is that almost a good thing to maybe get away from Denver? Just wondering what they're going to do with their quarterback situation.
Who's his quarterback next year?
I mean, we assume it's Drew Lock, but
if they don't make the playoffs, we're talking about a team that could be in line for a certain quarterback from BYU. That's what I think.
Oh, I mean, they're not. They're definitely not making the playoffs, right?
I think. A kid like that is primed for a team like this. That's what I think.
I almost wondered if they would go the veteran route. They feel like they've got. That's when Elway is looking. Okay, find the next Peyton Manning, right? That's how he found success before. Enough of this drafting, developing.
I'll tell you why that's a great idea, and this is, and I'm going to halt Dr. Jim on this one because I want to hear about what he thinks about Sutton and all that going forward.
Okay.
But the reality is this: that team is primed for a guy to lead them. That's what I think. Drew Lock is a good quarterback, but that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Like I've heard like Matthew Stafford, because he's in the last year of his contract. I tell you who'd go nuts at a team like Denver? Carsten Wentz would go nuts at a place like Denver.
1,000%.
Oh man, could you imagine? Like with guys that can separate and get open with a decent line and a decent run game, just to let him fling it about, that would be amazing. Even Jimmy Garoppolo, to an extent, could facilitate that team, whereas Locke, half the time, I don't know what he's doing.
I think it's halftime he doesn't know what he's doing.
And to be fair, like, I think he's a guy that needs to sit back behind a vet and just, like, Case Keenum didn't work. Okay, cool. Like, of course he didn't work. He's not going to work for everyone. He's not going to work for everyone, right?
Well, to be fair, he played much better in Washington than he did in Denver. Like, it was weird to see. Like, he just
barely. I mean, he had that going for him. He didn't really do much in St. Louis. He didn't really do much anywhere that wasn't Minnesota. So, you would think that they could go and make a play. I mean, Denver going after Wentz would be just ridiculous. And then you've got like Wentz versus Mahomes, Wentz versus Herbert. Oh, I'm all about that. I don't have a problem with Wentz, except he's a little fragile and he seems a little bit he's pulling the wool over the eyes a little bit. I think people are in love with him a little too much. But a place like I heard Stafford's name, but my God, Wentz in Denver with Judy, Sutton, Hamler, Gordon. Oh my God, like give him someone instead of these guys like Sega Whiteside or Nelson. I mean, Aguilar's better in Vegas than he is anywhere else. Great, like. Man, I could see him in a place like Denver just going nuts.
Yeah, and admittedly with Aguilar, the bar was set very low and he was in Philly. But with Sutton, you know, we were just talking about Preston Williams, and he is somebody that, again, he falls right into that category of, I mean, he was projected to, you know, be over 1,000 yards this year. And he, you know, ADP was in the 40s. This guy, he didn't do anything this year. I would be very surprised if he doesn't fall significantly. And, you know, if he's healthy, assuming that his offseason goes well, you know, following the ACL, MCL surgery, it's very similar to like the Joe Burrow type injury. You know, he's a young guy. Was a healthy guy prior to this. You know, recovery chances are really good. And he's one of those guys, like, again, you can get late thinking ahead to 2021, you know, just kind of make a little check mark there and follow him, see how he's doing. And if things are progressing, even if he ends up on the PUP for the beginning of the year, like he's one of those guys that you get late, acquisition cost is extremely low, ceiling is through the roof, and he could pop. And if he doesn't, you get away from him and you mine for gold on the waiver wire. But this is how you think about it. This is how you play the injury game. And who are these guys that are forgotten about that have immense talent but just don't have the numbers behind it? And then you kind of sneak in there and get them late and hope that they pop. And he fits that bill to a T. I mean, I'm going to be looking at him next year. So,
do you know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of when Allen Robinson had a similar injury. I feel like Robinson, he got hurt round 1 when he was with the Jags a couple of years back, and it took him like a full year to get back. He only played that one game against Pittsburgh, and because he missed week 1 with the shoulder, if I remember correctly, and then he played week 2, and then he got hurt. And,
in fairness, it's tough to keep track of Allen Robinson's various injuries from game to game and year to year.
He's all right now, but, you know, it reminds me of then. It was a similar age. I think Robinson might have been like, I feel like he was 24 maybe.
Yeah, so same age.
But I've kind of got that same feel about what's happening with Sutton. Like, next year will not be his best year, but you get him at age 26.
Really exciting potential there.
Guy you want to keep an eye on still. So, but again, like by the time he makes a full recovery, he could be a different quarterback again. You never know.
Different quarterback, different system, but they have some interesting pieces.
He could be somewhere else. Completely.
Yeah, the Broncos made, again, I believe he'll be entering the final year of his rookie contract, which I think, Dan, you're right. I don't know if maybe not necessarily the age, but I believe Allen Robinson was that third year in the league where it was the big breakout year 2, and then that next season coming off that, I believe that injury occurred. So, anyway, so I think, mentioning perhaps Cortland Sutton might be a value next year than in drafts.
Yeah, 1,000%.
That late value really is a key to winning fantasy football championships, which, I mean, here we are week 16, we're, on the verge of it. So any stories to share?
Do you know when he's going to be of value? Sorry if I can get this last one in. Cortland Sutton is going to be of value when you're doing your best ball drafts early next year, right? And you're going to see him, and everyone's going to see him with that injury mark next to him, and everyone's going to stay away. And just
1,000%. That's how you do it. You just
keep letting him fall.
Take a shot. Because it's double-digit rounds.
He's going to be there. That's it.
Because in best ball, without having to set lineups, you're not stressing every week looking at that lineup, seeing him injured. You just set it and forget it. And
you're banking on him getting that late round, like that mid-season form after he's got those reps in him, and he's going to take off that week 10, 11. He can be a guy that wins the championships next year because he's finally worked his health back up. But especially with best ball, like you start nothing better than best ball after the draft for me, because that's when like everyone goes rookie crazy and just pushes that value even further back. So for me, I'll be looking at a guy like Sutton all over. I hate drafting guys that are injured because, hey, you never know, right?
Well, that's what you got the doc for. You just dial me up, baby. We got you covered.
That's it. Or I could just go reference your book. Injuries suck. But your fantasy team doesn't have to.
That's right.
Available now on Amazon, as it would be. But for what it's worth, yeah.
Good read, Ed. Good read.
Thank you, sir.
You plug it in. By the way, I could feel like I need a beer. Do we have any beer promos for going for two? I feel like there's a decent one out there somewhere. I'm sure Jeff will text us in a minute. Maybe he won't. Who knows? But I feel like there is one that we need to know about. And, there's one out there too. But he's going to be that guy in best ball I'm going to be smashing next year, Cortland Sutton. Because everyone's going to get on Jerry Jeudy for year 2 or Hamler as well.
Yeah, Patrick.
He's, of all the receivers that Denver has, even like Noah Fant, he is just going to slip right by them all. So that's a name that you absolutely want to.
And I mean, I think out of all the receivers this year, he was the one I was most excited about. Sutton being.
I had him everywhere. I have him everywhere too.
4th, 5th round pick. I mean, that's a high pick.
He seemed locked in for 120 targets. It seemed like that was just going to be the case.
And the kicker is that I feel like Jeudy is going to be so much better for him being there too. And he's going to take a lot of weight off Jerry Jeudy and vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe, Jeudy struggled. Maybe it'll help having Sutton there.
Oh, yeah.
It can't hurt.
Can't
hurt. I know Matt mentioned something about Edelman.
Yeah, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. So he's out this week. It looks like he's unlikely to play next week. The Patriots are ruthless as far as like making their cut. It's kind of like the players change, but the story remains the same. Like it's like Wes Welker, part deux. Like he may be done in New England, but that doesn't mean that he's done. Period. He's another guy that he's shown that he's a gamer. Like he can play. And if he decides that he wants to, what's he really got to play for other than love of the game? He's made a bunch of money. He's won a bunch of championships. But if he wants to keep playing, he's another guy that he's going to be forgotten about next year. Same thing, low acquisition cost, and could be, he could be huge. Cole Beasley and Danny Amendola are guys that have value, and you can make an argument that he's way better than both of those guys. And they've gone on and had success in multiple franchises.
I'll tell you what's good this time of year: the weather in Tampa. That's what I'm saying about.
Yeah. Could you imagine that? How great would that be?
There's also, there's another factor that you don't want to pass over that probably leads him to go there.
Yeah, there may be one or two other things. I can't think of what it might be, but I'm sure it'll come to me. It might come
1 or 12 reasons maybe. I will say Edelman's cap hit's only $6.1 million. That's not large. They cut him and they save 2/3 of it, so it's even cheaper to get rid of him.
They are ruthless. They are ruthless.
They need to blow it up.
They
probably do,
ruthless.
but it's not to get it.
To be fair, to get 6 wins with Cam Newton walking in the door, 2 weeks before the season started, to go 6-8, probably 6-10 this year. I think they have. I feel like they have the Jets next week, I feel like they got the Jets next week.
Hey, the Jets are on fire, man. I wouldn't chalk it up as a loss.
2-game win streak for them.
Jets are on a heater.
I'm just saying, DFS, just line up your Crowders and Ty Johnson, because Frank Gore's already been ruled out for next week.
But, Frank Gore, man, the ageless one, chest bruised lung.
I'm just saying,
ruled out.
What they've done with Cam Newton, and I'm sure that'll lead into tonight's game at some point, has been nothing short of sensational. You could look at teams that have done exponentially worse, that had more preparation in such a disrupted period. These guys, they are bringing in quarterbacks legitimately off the street to do this. And that's what they did with Cam Newton, who had all those injury concerns as well. If they're not going to pay Cam Newton, fine. That's probably not going to happen. And I think Cam Newton to Washington would be pretty cool. Get that Rivera mix up again. Bring back old boy Greg Olsen.
There you go. And now you're talking. Might have a future as a GM.
Let's have a disco. Let's go have some fun.
Just from a mature leadership standpoint, you're getting so much better, Cam, than you are with Haskins. If nothing else, Ron Rivera is going to just welcome that, knowing that he had a guy that led his team to a Super Bowl. He knows he's got a leader in Cam.
He'll let the guy just guide them around as he has to. With Alex Smith, that's probably there another year. But the reality is that
2 former first. Who could say that? 2 former first overall picks at quarterback. Man. Really? I mean, isn't that what you want in your quarterback room?
Sure, but at the same time, look, he's done it with. And N'Keal Harry was just trash until like maybe a couple of weeks ago when he kind of came out of his shell a little bit more. Great. Damiere Byrd's come out of nowhere and he's been okay. Jacoby Myers has been one of the waiver wire pickups of the week for year for fantasy football. He's been sensational. He was almost on that DJ Chark trajectory at some point. He was almost on that way, except their year just was delayed by so much. They got 2 tight ends that no one knows their name. I don't know who they are. They got Sonny Michel, who doesn't have any kneecaps anymore. They'll lose James White. What they're going to do with Rex Burkett's another thing. This is a team that just needs to blow it up because the reality is they got 7 or 8 guys that are coming back from that COVID opt-out. Their defense, if you remember correctly, they were the team that had most of these guys opting out from the start.
Yep, I think they had the most opt. I think they had half the NFL opt-outs of that initial period.
Then you look at guys like a Landon Roberts, Van Noy, all those guys that left elsewhere in free agency too. That's a team that got just absolutely gashed. To get 6 wins is incredible, but they still have it in their wheelhouse to just blow it up and go from there. And I think they kind of got to. I wouldn't be surprised if we see. I'm going to call it now. Josh McDaniels on the move. That's what I think. He's out of there. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's the next offensive coordinator of the New York Football Giants.
Well, I guess we'll see. So there is something.
The tables turn. Instead of him being Joe Judge's boss and Judge.
Yeah. Could you imagine the subplots there? How great would that be?
Yeah, there'd be 0 restrictions on him. They'd let him have it.
I did want to mention this going into the game with the Bills and also with Tennessee. You know, we've been kind of tracking COVID and things like that. With the Bills, the Fox is in the hen house. So TJ Yeldon tested positive. They already had a couple of players from the practice squad.
You had one job.
I know, right? It happens. It's not playing football because
it happens. People, it's really easy to get. So they actually activated John Brown off of IR and then placed him on the COVID list due to contact tracing. So if he continues to test negative, he may actually be available for Week 17. But the Bills, it draws a lot of their players into question now. You got to keep a really close eye on that, especially if you're still playing for Week 17 or, potentially DFS, things like that. Tennessee, Gostowski, the kicker, got placed on the COVID list. Not clear whether he tested positive or not, but the Fox may be in the hen house there too. So Derrick Henry, Tannehill,
Tennessee,
Brown.
Wow, Tennessee.
So that's a it's a problem, and that leads me to a story. I know that we have guys that are still playing for championships. I know Kyle's got heavily vested in tonight's game. Dan as well. But for those of you that either didn't make it to the championship or lost the championship, and congrats to Dave and Austin for winning this year. I have what might possibly be the worst gut punch, soul-destroying loss in a championship that I have ever experienced in my 25 years plus of fantasy sports. And here it goes. So the guy is facing Kamara, and Kamara eradicates him. He drops a double nickel on him, 55. He's got no chance, right? No chance. And then Ertz pretty much lays an egg. The other guy's defense, the team that has Kamara, drops a -10 in the championship. His other guys are playing. Everybody's doing double digits. So he's climbing.
He's negated, right?
He's negated all that positivity from Alvin Kamara, and he's winning. And it's on CBS, so you got the tracker, right? So the thing was like he was 30%, now he's 40%. It gets all the way up to 90%. So this guy got 55 dropped on him, and he was dead in the water, and now he's got a 90% chance of winning. Except the other guy who had Kamara also has Russell Wilson and J.D. McKissick, who hadn't done much of anything until the fourth quarter, and it was like in succession. McKissick catches a touchdown, and Russell Wilson gets a touchdown, and now he's losing by 10. But he's still got the hammer because he's got Corey Davis on Sunday night. So he's looking good, projected for like 11, 12 points. Still got a decent chance, and then Corey Davis goes out and drops a 0 in a blizzard, and he loses the championship after being a 90-something% chance to win after getting 55 dropped on him. Watching that, I wasn't involved at all. It was like I actually had chest pains after that. And I just sat there and I contemplated my life choices. And I was like, I can't imagine what that might feel like. I've lost, I've won. That is the worst. So if you guys got something to top that, I'm all ears.
I don't know about topping it, but I went through that this weekend in the league that I run, prominently named the B League. But it's one of those things where it was like the Saturday game, and the guy had Myles Gaskin, and it was just one of those things. I was like, God damn, like that's going to hurt. But I had Chase Edmonds,
okay,
and he's like put up 1.8 points. I'm like, ugh, like that's not great. And then he had I'm watching the games on Sunday loosely. I got kids, I'm in and out. But I flick it over and Jamison Crowder throws a passing touchdown. I'm like, that's my weekend right there. He's got me now. I'm thinking Jamison Crowder's throwing passing touchdowns against the Browns. Funnily enough, Superflex League, the guy had Baker Mayfield where everyone was gone.
Right.
And he had Tua Tagovailoa, who most of his points came off that last run from Gaskins. So it came down to I was ahead somehow. Curtis Samuel and Austin Eckler and Deontay Johnson pulled it back for me. And I got some good quarterbacks. I did okay. I got Watson and Jackson, and they did all right. But at one point, Watson wrenches his arm. He fumbles, gone. Next play, Mayfield fumbles, gone. He had Mayfield. Next play is Lamar Jackson, fumble, done. I'm like, we're both dropping points. It's going the wrong direction. It's like, all right. But I had a 13-point lead heading into last night, and he had A.J. Brown. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, A.J. Brown, I'm thinking – well, it wasn't so much Brown, or the snow. It wasn't that. I know, and Kyle is our Full Press Packers guy. Get that other plug in if anybody wants to listen to the best Packers advice out there. Listen to your Full Press coverage, Green Bay Packers show from Kyle Center. King and Alexander are fantastic. They're great, and I think they are. I think they're underrated, and I think I think
Alexander's amazing. I don't know about King.
I think as a duo, I think they're pretty good.
They do complement each other well in terms of playing styles.
I think King gets hammered because Alexander's so great. And I think that's just it goes one way or the other. And as I'm watching, it's like what I have with the Giants. We got James Bradbury and the other guy's Isaac Yardem. Yardem gets hammered because no one touches Bradbury. And that's just how it is at this point. But I'm watching this is going on, and your guy doesn't have to catch until halftime. The last play before halftime, I'm thinking, ugh. And then he has one or two more, and I think I got by about 5 points. So I ended up getting by, but even still, A.J. Brown that last game, wasn't that cost him. I still think it was Mayfield losing all these receivers, because if he had Mayfield's receivers, Landry's there, Jones and Peoples-Jones and Higgins, it was over before the
completely different story.
Yeah, right. And he should feel unlucky because he would have been sitting there last night looking at A.J. Brown going, and understand that the league that I run is based predominantly in Australia. So they would have woken up and seen the snow in Wisconsin and gone, what the hell is this? What's going on here? I got extremely lucky this week. So I got my first win in the league that I run.
Right. That's always a good feeling when you have to send the check out to somebody else, you get to keep it.
I don't like winning in my own league. I don't like it. I like seeing them win. It's a bit more fun for me because, as commissioner, you want to make as many bad choices as you can. And if I make those choices and then I win, it's like, well, they did it to benefit. I'm not dealing with that. I'd just rather make the playoffs. I'm happy I'm done.
Well, it's nice to win your own league once in a while.
Unlucky Frothy. Chin up. Next year.
Speaking of next year, Rob Block, just the comment from Twitch, so I appreciate that, I think. Fitzpatrick to Edelman could be something. Truth is, I just don't know what team either would be on. But, if those two can connect somehow on whatever their destination is.
Could you imagine Fitzpatrick in New England with Belichick? That'd be mental.
That would be fantastic.
Ryan,
that would be absolutely fantastic.
Ryan, don't throw the ball. Don't throw the ball. Don't throw the ball. Oh, he threw it again. Next play, Ryan, don't throw the ball.
We leave him in there, but he actually completed it. Wow.
I'm not surprised to see our Twitch viewers up either. That's not a surprise to me. Our Twitch viewers the chart. Yeah.
I did actually have a question for Kyle before you guys get to the Monday night stuff. So I know that the Chiefs have already locked it up in the AFC. Trying to figure out who still has something to play for. I know New Orleans won the division. Seattle won their division. Tampa Bay's already in the playoffs. We talked about the NFC East, and that leaves the Rams and Arizona, who we talked about. They have to play. and Chicago has to win as well. They're still alive. But what's the story with the number 1 seed there? How does that all shake out? Obviously, if Green Bay wins, they get the 1 seed. But are New Orleans and Seattle alive for that? Like, do they still have something to play for potentially?
I think it gets weird if it gets to a 3-way tiebreaker. I know if it's just Packers and Saints, then the Packers have that tiebreaker. They have the head-to-head against the Saints week 3, I guess. Week 4? Week 3, I think. And so I know part of the reason the Packers haven't clinched already is because Seattle won, and Seattle's kind of keeping it interesting. So, yes, by Seattle winning, it has kind of forced all 3 of these teams to win with the potential of playing for something. For the Seahawks and Saints, you're relying on the Packers losing. But if they do and you can manage to win, maybe you get that first round bye. So I kind of expect all 3 teams are going to have to play all their starters, at least for unless those games turn into blowouts. That's different. They can bench them as they would normally. But yeah, I think all 3 teams are going to go into this week with something to play for.
Seattle is at San Fran as well, so another division rivalry game.
Yeah, they're playing hard. Both teams are going to play hard in that game.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see Kittle come back and play well. After having that fractured foot. So he looked pretty spry. He looked really good. So it was nice to see him get back out there. But they're going to play. They're going to play hard. Those division games, nobody's laying down for anybody in any of those.
And the one thing with the Packers is the Bears. Yeah, they've already beat them once. I mean, I'm assuming I haven't seen the line yet. Speaking of seeing stuff, Izzy's here. So if you have any Deshaun Jackson talk, Dan, it's now's the time. The thing is, if the Packers having to play the Bears here, if the Bears get in as the 7th seed and somehow upset whoever's the number 2 seed, that means they're going to go to travel to Green Bay for the divisional round. As much as the Packers probably think I think we could all accept that they're a better team than the Bears. Beating a team 3 times the same season, it's not
really tough.
Given.
I'll tell you what, though, with that game, I kind of half back Chicago in poor conditions in Green Bay, if that makes sense.
They're used to it.
I'd kind of be okay if that, if it was a beautiful day in Wisconsin, different story. I think Rodgers dices them up. But I kind of think that if it's what we saw, the conditions we saw last night, I would have no problem thinking.
It's interesting. Yeah, they got a better chance. Devontae Adams actually talked about that with Tennessee. He's like, they're a really good team, but playing in these conditions, you could tell they're just not used to it. So, the Packers playing New Orleans, you favor the Packers huge as opposed to the Bears.
Ryan Tannehill's
I'd rather them play
to Miami to Ryan Tannehill's going from what was he with University?
And he's from Texas, isn't he?
Texas to Miami to Tennessee. He wants no part of Wisconsin stuff.
No, none of those guys. They weren't ready for that.
Yeah, it looks like
so. Even if the Packers didn't have something to play for in terms of seeding, which again they win, they guarantee their first seed. So I think they are going to be motivated in that regard.
For sure.
To knock out the Bears out of the playoffs and ensure that you don't have to, not even for the emotional. Oh yeah, we kicked our division rival out. It's you don't want to have to play them again. I'd rather them play Arizona. As much as you have much more faith in Kyler Murray as a quarterback than you do Mitch Trubisky. Just the defense, I think, too, is maybe a little bit scary. I know Bakhtiari's kind of had Khalil Mack's number the last few years, so there's less fear there. But I could see the Packers hammering this game home and saying, let's destroy this team so we don't have to see them again this year.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point. They don't want to play these guys. They don't want to play these guys again. And to knock them out, absolutely, they don't want to see these guys again. Period.
And with the Rams with Jared Goff injured, I'm sure as much as you don't really want to see Aaron Donald, I think you'd much rather play John Wolford. Again, I already forgot his name again.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we're talking about Arizona to beat the Rams this week. That would have them jump them, I think. So that would almost see.
It should.
It would almost see Green Bay meet the Rams if they were to dice up the Bears. I think. I don't know how that works, but that's what it could be. But again, Rams are playing well. They're putting up 30 points a week, aren't they? They're playing some so-so teams at that point, but you still got to do it. And Trubisky's my DFS darling. I go to him every week.
1,000%.
Every time.
He's been doing great.
Trubisky's got to be priced every week. DFS, 5,500 to 5,900, depending on how he goes. Because obviously, David Montgomery's been in form, right? So Montgomery's kind of flooded that. But Trubisky's going to rush one in and throw 2 to Jimmy Graham at 5,500, 5,700. I'm about that life every week. Every week. He's like a bootleg Justin Herbert at that point. And I'll take that. I'll take that. Paying up for Justin Herbert at 7,400, if you had him this week, was a kick in the teeth. I know that much too.
Yeah. Those LA Chargers stacks did not go according to plan. That's for sure.
No, I've been stacking the Bears in some capacity every week lately, and I'm talking like Trubisky with Montgomery and a cheap option. Like if I've got it right, it's Cole Kmet. If I've got it wrong, it's Darnell Mooney, and I'm trying to get the edge on one of those guys or another stack like that with who they're playing. So like I had in a stack this week, I had Trubisky, Montgomery, and Chark. Like that worked out well. Like that worked out all right. Yeah. Because that's a very cheap alternative. I'm getting a high-priced running back.
Bears scored 41 points, right? You got the quarterback and running back stack. That's the type of offenses you want for that. And
I'm banking on the Jags to chase. And Chark, although their best receiver, isn't doing a lot, and you're just hoping for that one breakaway play. I saw a couple injuries on the Bears defensive side this week, and I went for it. I did all right, but that can work. That can work if you play your cards like that. And the Bears every week, look, if the Packers aren't that best team at rush defense, like they're not like Ryan Tannehill had another 40-yard rushing touchdown against them. I will get on Mitchell Trubisky to do that. I'll double down with Montgomery, and I'll probably stack them with someone like Alan Lazard or someone this week as well. Like I'll find someone else to go that route. Maybe even Robert Tonyan.
Tonyan played tight ends against the Bears, right?
I can throw something like Tonyan together. He'll be maybe around that 4,800 because he's found a bit of form the last 6 weeks. So you can do that this week, week 17. Have some fun. See what's up.
But that's how you do it.
Yeah, I'll take Trubisky with Montgomery and Tonyan, and I'll run with that. Why not?
I like it. I hope you use some of those winnings to buy my book. Injuries suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. So we talk about all the injury stuff that we talk about here. I see Izzy chimed in. If you're talking about Kyler Murray, we talked about him at the top of the show, so go check the replay on that. We talked at length about that.
The whole episode.
We got a lot of good stuff for you there. He's going
to ask me about it tomorrow instead. Hey, what happened?
I did have something for Dan because they're talking about Evan Ingram and how there's optimism that he might play. He hasn't met with the team doctors yet. If he doesn't play, then I think Caden Smith becomes really interesting. But I wanted to get your take on it.
He doesn't. He really doesn't become interesting. No. Evan Ingram. Where to begin? Catching the ball's a start. He's had that problem.
As a receiver in the NFL. Ouch. Wow.
Ouch.
Blocking is another problem that he's had. I really hope I love Evan Ingram as a player. The sooner they convert him to wide receiver is the better. Listen, you go get Ingram as a wide receiver, and I'm about that.
He's basically Devin Funchess, right? But
I'd be fine with him being Devin Funchess. We don't have a big-bodied receiver like that. We don't have that at all. So the Giants could use a big receiver like – they keep getting paired up with people in free agency. Like, for the love of God, don't go get Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay would be the worst-case scenario. The guy can't play, and if he can't play, he doesn't want to. So get rid of him. I keep seeing him lined up with Allen Robinson. The guy will be 28 next year. I'm fine with him to not be that guy. I'd rather they just draft a guy. If you're going to be in that 15 to – I mean, hypothetically, if they were to make the playoffs, if they weren't, they're going to be anywhere between pick 8 and maybe pick 17. So at that point, go get that best receiver that's out there. Go do yourself a favor and do that. They need to get that dominant alpha receiver because they just don't have it. Sterling Shepard's not that guy. I love some Darius Slayton. They got to reduce what their belief in him is. Evan Ingram's killing them. I don't think Caden Smith will do much. I was on Caden Smith all off season. I thought maybe Garrett would work him in because he's a bit more of his prototype, but he didn't really do it. I think it would mean more – I don't want to say probably more Dion Lewis. The way the Giants operate, that's probably what it's going to be. Or more Golden Tate if he's about. I think he was a scratch last week and whatnot, but he's really done not much this year. Or the receivers have done – Slayton was fine for the first 6 weeks, and then I don't know what happened, and he fell off the map, and that was it. They've been Sterling Shepard's fantastic. I think for what he is, he's going to get you anywhere between 85 targets, 65 receptions, 750 yards, 5 touchdowns a year. He's going to be that guy for the rest of his career, and that's a great complimentary piece. But That's it. They've got no one. It's not Ingram either. He's got to go. You tell me that the Giants can go get Jonnu Smith next year, I'm about that life as well. I'd rather they go pay up for Jonnu Smith and let Evan Ingram walk. I will take that. But anything else is just not going to work.
Okay, and I guess we got a quick 5 minutes. Jimmy, might as well join us for the Monday Night Preview since that's all we have left.
Let's do it.
So
let's do it.
First off, go to Thrive Fantasy, sign up with the promo code Armchair, and they'll match your deposit up to $50. So
plug.
Yeah, there you go. Plug at the end.
We gotta get them in.
Looking at these Thrive lines, though, just quickly, my favorite might be Cole Beasley receiving, knowing that John Brown's not in.
I think Gabe. I wish there was a Gabe Davis option in here. Every time John Brown's out, Gabe Davis turns up. You'd think that they would wisen up to that. Look, we love our partners in crime at Thrive. We really do, and they're a great sponsor for Going for Two, and I think they're a fantastic partner with what we're doing. But there's no Cam Newton rush yards in this, and I kind of like cringed when I didn't see that. I was like, oh, why not? Like, you would think that's the way to go to get Cam Newton rush yards in here, but that might also be too obvious, and that could be why they left that.
164.5 pass yards is what I see right now on the site, which is a crazy low line. In a game where they're the underdogs, I kind of feel 164.5. I feel like that's super easily attainable.
Come on, that's going to happen. That's going to happen, I think.
Yeah.
All you got to do is throw it to James White a few times, and that's a good chance.
It's funny. They have Josh Allen rush yards, 29.5.
Wow. Yeah, I see that happening. I kind of like Dawson Knox 27.5. I like that. Dawson Knox 27.5 yards. I kind of thought that was a pretty good one there. Dawson Knox has been okay the back end of this year as well.
He's screaming under for some reason. Is that the Cam Newton pass yards? What is that for exactly, Izzy?
Izzy takes the under on everything.
Actually, I guess with this game line, maybe we should talk about that. Yeah, right. So what is it? The Bills are favored by 7.5. The over-under currently at 47.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the Bills at 7.5. It's hard not to. It's kind of hard not to go that route. 47. They had, I think. Let me double down on this. They had the Patriots at 19.5. I think, as a team total. Where are we? They had the Patriots at 19.5. Can the Patriots get the 21? They're going to need some help from Nick Folk. And if you're looking at your Thrive lines, Nick Folk at 5.5 points, I think, is a good option as well. As an over. The Bills could go ham tonight.
Yeah, that's why I like the Bills and the over. I think they can kind of.
Yeah. Oh, listen,
is he saying 31-3 Bills?
Listen, we do say this frequently. 31-3 Bills, but the house stand. No, I will not bet the house on 31-3. He's going to kill me.
So he doesn't like. I think the under was for Cam Newton's throwing yards.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Listen, we have a saying where around the podcast that we roll with. That's generally home favorites and unders every time. So you're looking at home favorites in the Patriots at plus 7.5 and under 47, and logically that would make sense. That's kind of in that realm. Cam Newton could have a big day today. I think that's a possibility. Like in terms of fantasy, like if you're in a super flex league, this could be very well a big Cam Newton day, and he doesn't have to do it in the air. We know that. I know Kirk Cousins is trash. Cam Newton's trash. I understand this guy. Oh my god. But again, like this could be a game where like Cam Newton rushes for like 65, 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. That could well happen today. And you throw in over 160 yards. If you're in one of those super flex leagues and you've started him somehow, because let's face it, like Buffalo, like the 31st ranked passing defense, right? They're not very good defending the pass. So you're not expecting him to go nuts with the receivers that he has. But at the same time, like, if he can get you to 150, 160, 170 passing yards, and he can get that 60, 70 yards rushing, he's going to be a chance to get a few of those goal line work, a bit of that goal line work as well. I don't really care for Sony Michel ever. So, like, you'd kind of think that Cam Newton could be in line for a big game, as it would be, and you could stack up, like Stephon Gilmore's on IR, right? So you can stack. You can bring Josh Allen passing yards up. I don't think they'll have any fear with guys like Stephon Diggs, and 23.5 completions seems about right. I think he's about there. Newton combined touchdowns and intercepts was at 2.5. I'm going to take the under on that as well. I don't think he'll throw that many intercepts, but I don't think he'll throw many touchdowns either.
Yeah.
Okay. Just something to throw in there with Cam Newton, because he has been playing for a while with this abdominal injury.
Yeah.
And, with the Patriots being eliminated, there was some talk that they were going to,
let Jarrett
Stidham, yeah. And why? I mean, they already paid Newton the money, and he's playing hurt. So it's like there is a non-zero chance that, either because he gets hurt or because he just flat out, I don't want to say stinks, but he's, less effective because of his injury or for whatever other reason, and they bench him. And Stidham actually gets some legit playing time. There's a non-zero chance that happens. So
which then prevents Cam from reaching those yards. Totally.
Exactly. So those
game,
there's a lot of paths to Cam Newton coming under on a lot of these things, which I think is kind of baked into some of the low numbers. But he could even come in under that. And that's not to say that the Bills aren't a good team either, because they can hold them down in their own right.
Izzy's predicting this could be Cam's last game in the NFL. But,
I don't know if I go that far, but I think he'll land on his feet somewhere.
Well, Derek Carr still has a job, so will Cam Newton.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
for now.
Yeah.
But look at this. Cam Newton was the darling of the fantasy scene for the first few weeks when he was, he was lighting it up.
Julian Edelman. He also had Julian Edelman with him.
Yeah,
there's the secret.
Yeah.
Fair. But the thing is that he's he still can play. And if you took Cam Newton in your fantasy league in the first few weeks of the season, you were looking like a genius.
Sony Michel's second play, 40-yard rush right up the middle. And that was a toss out the back, was it? Yes. Yeah,
well, I need 39 points from Josh Allen and Cole Beasley.
You should be fine.
All right.
I should be, especially because quarterback scoring is quite elevated in this league. But the Patriots producing well will help that. Force Allen to stay in the game longer, force more passes. So, like to see production in this game either way, really. Any more production for the Patriots should help.
I have a bigger task on my hands. Oh, man, I don't want to see that. I've got Edmonds and Diggs playing in an IDP league against me. I'm up by 42, and we've got Edmonds and Diggs. And I kind of half need oh, my God, Demir, but how did you screw that up? Unbelievable. No, they went
going for two live Monday night commentary crew.
Oh, my God. Demir Birds dropped a sitter. They've gone for the trick play, and Newton's hit him wide open, and he's dropped it on the 1 yard line.
See, it's not all Cam's fault.
I think Izzy's most of their time in the fact that you're watching the game while you should be live broadcasting. But that's part of
Izzy, this is every week at the end of the show.
I just can't stop. I can't stop. Every now and again, you see things that you go, "What is that?" It always happens early. For some reason, it catches my attention. But yeah, I'm up against Edmonds and I'm up against Edmonds and Diggs for 41, 42 points. And I'm not feeling overly confident. It's weird because the longer the Patriots on the field, the better it is for Edmonds.
True.
And if the Patriots take the lead, that's better for Diggs. So I kind of need the Bills to blow them out and to get off the field at halftime and leave it alone. That's what I'm hoping.
So the exact opposite of me. Okay, all right.
Well, we're looking at Nick Folk. He's about to hit that 3 points out of the 5.5, so we could be on it here.
There you go.
Yeah, well, yeah. So that's what I'm hoping for. But that was the first dynasty league I joined. I'm not the biggest dynasty person here, and that was a 16-team IDP league, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I made the semis last year. I'm in the final this year. It's with the Back Row Fantasy Show guys. They are IDP guys. I'm out of my depth, and semifinals 1 year, final the next. I'm pretty happy, but
take that all day.
Well, listen, the guy I'm playing against is Bark, and he talk about dynasty trades. He traded away Lamar Jackson for Aaron Rodgers, which is something you wouldn't and his whole point was, I'm trying to win this year, And I didn't really. So that doesn't make any sense. But like, the way
it worked out for him.
Because Lamar Jackson last year, like you wouldn't say that out loud and then partner that with Lamar Jackson, but like he's been spot on, like with that. Completely.
No, absolutely.
Rodgers has been nuts, and the way he was going outside of like the intercept, I think last night, and then a sack or two at the end, he was flying. So, it's one of those things. That's where I'm at tonight. So, not overly.
Good luck to you guys. At least you got something to play for. So that's,
I might go
more than I could say. So God bless. Wishing you both.
I mean, my lineup set the game started. There's nothing I can do now. There's not much playing. It's just watching here.
I think I'm going to go read the kids a book or something. I don't think
that might be best.
Because I will be stressed out watching that game. I know that for sure.
I had to watch a Packers game last night to not watch AJ Brown catch a ball. I don't think I can do it 2 nights in a row. I don't think I got it in me. That's not a slight on the Packers. It's just one of those things where I just, they kill teams early, the Packers. I find it hard to watch them. I don't know how you do it because they kill teams off early, and then you've got to, like, watch the rest of the game like nothing's happening.
But then stuff always ends up happening. They can't kill out games, so it's always entertaining.
Even last night, I was like, who they play?
Tell that to Seattle in the playoffs.
I just don't even.
Remember that onside kick, Kyle?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah. Never forget that one.
I can't deal with the Packers because I can watch them for the first half. They are ridiculous, and then I'll go do something else. There's no point for me anymore. It's like, they'll be fine. There's nothing else in this. It's over. It's the opposite of a Giants game, except they don't do anything at the end of the game either.
So Gladys, we miss you, Gladys.
Yes, Gladys. Unfortunately,
our
first episode, Gladys wasn't on. Our last episode as well. There's some synchronicity there, maybe some appropriateness. But yes, miss you, Gladys. Hoping come back strong in 2021.
and for all those who are out there still watching,
get the book.
Gladys had no. I mean, yes, but yeah. Gladys had a great article today on Going for Two that just went up. It's a fantastic read. Definitely check it out. It's fantastic stuff. I also wrote an article. I just hope that I don't get published next so I don't have to follow her article. I hope there's a couple other people to give me a little bit of a buffer. So, yeah, it's really good stuff.
Yeah, yes, our Going for Two sports stories that matter to me and Gladys' story really does matter. So,
1,000%.
I wrote about the CFL, right? So, this is next level. So,
I didn't write anything because I think that was something that came up on Discord.
I mean, he does it every year. I've been writing.
I'm not in Discord. I don't know what's going on.
I've contributed the last couple of years, so
I did too. But my notifications have cut in half, and I've been so happy. I don't want to say that out loud, but I'm not bothered.
This really should have waited until after the episode was done, but that's okay. Everyone knows now.
Uncle Tito disagrees. That's okay. It's all good.
Dan is in rarefied air right now.
Oh, man. Diggs and Edmonds, what am I going to do?
There you go.
Allen and Beasley, what am I going to do? But
there you go.
All our listeners, what are you going to do? I mean, you've spent all these Mondays with us and brought great questions. Or in Izzy's case, comments towards Dan especially. But we appreciate everyone who's watching, listening, commenting. Certainly, hopefully, we've done best to answer your questions. Really do appreciate the Fantasy Sports Talk Jim Ferretti, whom I can pronounce his name. Your insight is appreciated.
I can't believe you didn't want him on the show, Kyle.
I
want the spotlight on me.
I don't believe that for a second.
This got presented, and Kyle was like, why would we do that for? That sounds crazy. Put him on the Tuesday night show. And I was like, listen, what else could we do? They're going to listen to us? Come on, let's get a doctor in.
Kyle is one of my biggest supporters. I don't believe that for a second.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, well, thanks, Dan. Under the bus there. I'm not even the Philadelphia Eagles. Imagine if I was, how much worse that would be. But
yeah, well, we've got a whole other season for that coming, don't we?
Oh yes. So off season, going for 2 shifts to the off season. I know a few of our podcasts are switching in that regard. The Thursday Night Show has now become a new podcast, a podcast with upside. So check that out on Twitter and follow that up. Of course, everything Going for Two available at Going for Two. I know Gladys will be doing her own show, a debate style show
That's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
You've got one with Hamid, right?
Yeah, so me, Hamid, and Marco are going to be doing the Dynasty Gambit. Going to be, looking at people's rosters and taking it forward. My component will be looking at injuries going forward into 2021 and beyond. I'm really excited for that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be able to kind of keep this going. And those guys are great. Like it's going to be. I'm really excited for it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So keep pay attention to everything going for two for all the off-season content that we will be dropping. Of course, I'll have a show up, press coverage, more interview style. So yeah, we're lots of things happening. But again, appreciate all of you. You can follow each of us individually. Gladys, of course, at Never Enough GLT. Jim's at TFS.
Get it right.
TFS Dog at TFS Dog at the Fantasy Sports Dog.
There you go.
You're the TJ Yeldon of the group, mate.
You got it.
You had one job.
You got it.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll go replace some Moss.
There we go.
Yeah. Dan's at the V League says, and he says that I'm not doing so good of a job, so I should get out of here. But I'll be at Senra says if you ever want to hear anything else.
Happy New Year's to everybody.
Fantastic.
Stay safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, safe, healthy, prosperous 2021. Looking forward to better things.
Happy Kwanzaa as well. Kwanzaa was yesterday.
Happy holidays, right? Happy Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, everything. So I wish all you guys
fantasy football championships. That's
happy fantasy football championships, and wishing you guys the best in 2021. This has been so much fun. Thank you all for having me on here. Thank you, Kyle, Dan, Gladys. It's been my pleasure to do the work. I hope that it was helpful for the viewers and the readers out there. If there are any questions that come up, in the off season or anything like that, you can find me on Twitter, as Kyle so eloquently put it, at TFSDoc. You can also shoot me an email at the doc at thefantasysportsdoc.com. And of course, with baseball prep right around the corner, one more time, we'll plug the book, which is available on Amazon. It's Injuries Suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. We're going to get 3 in there. It's the last one of the season. Injuries suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. Thanks for all the support and all the reviews and everything. It's been tremendous. I hope it's something that you get a hold of and enjoy. It really helps you out.
Yeah, injuries do suck, and your fantasy team doesn't have to.
That is correct.
Jim will help you for that.
That is correct.
Oh, you got Izzy's attention, or I guess he's asking for basketball. Sorry, I read.
Yeah, it's all sports, Izzy. And if there's something in there or something that we talk about that isn't specifically mentioned, a lot of the injuries are kind of across all sports. But always, reach out, DM, send me an email, and I'm happy to connect with all my all the viewers and anybody that has any questions. I really one of my favorite things. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Jim, for joining us. Thank you, Dan, for always getting those show sheets ready and bringing such a nice positive attitude to every episode.
There we go. That's hey, listen, you might even keep hearing from me if the Giants keep winning, which is this is our thing with a Back Row Giants podcast. Me and Izzy, I guess. Izzy pops up.
Props up?
Yeah, well, yeah, he does, and he does okay, unless it's got to do with Justin Jefferson, one last dig. But for what it's worth, we normally have that going out every other week and give or take. That's what that is. Fantasy Impact for the Back Row Fantasy Show, that'll be back. I don't think there'll be one this week. I think that'll be back in a couple of weeks. And I should still have game plan for the week coming out sporadically over the next couple of months anyhow. I think there'll be a championship week 1 and maybe a wild card week 1 as well in a thereabouts. But outside of that, looking forward to wrapping up the year. I think we all need a break. Kyle, thank you very much for being an incredible host.
Great host.
Yeah, you've led us all around the paddock very, very well.
1,000%.
Gladys, thank you guys. Thank you for keeping us all in check. Go, you Steelers. Get your back sorted. Get yourself right. Thank you, Jim, for being a welcome addition. It's been a hell of a time having you on. We're looking forward to this kicking off next year as well. Hopefully, we'll see what we can do after those kids get drafted and the preseason takes place. Because if we know one thing's for sure, preseason injuries are inevitable. And so are we. Here we go.
There you go.
And once again, of course, thank you for all the listeners of the Going for Two War Room Live of not just Monday Night Edition, but all Going for Two War Room episodes throughout this 2020 season. Thank you all for listening to Going for Two.